someone want to serve as
You're live.
since we don't have other stuff for this meeting?
Thanks, Trina. I am Trina. These are not.
They're not plugged in?
They're not plugged in.
No, of course. Plugged in. This guy's plugged in.
This is on. Oh, is that it? No, is that on? No.
All right, now try it.
Oh, okay. Hello.
So, if you nominate. So, yes. We called the meeting outreach. Are you feeling?
So I think Sheree should volunteer to be the pro temp for this meeting, if that's okay with everyone.
Yeah, don't we have to nominate the pro temp or anything? Or we don't?
No, because people do it in the emails and stuff.
You have a quorum. You can decide whether everyone.
Are we good? You said we could what?
I mean, you do have a quorum, so you technically could elect a chair if you wanted to, but.
But the other members aren't.
Yeah,
here,
they don't
so
want
we
to.
don't want to do it.
Okay.
Oh.
For this meeting.
Okay, so.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sharina Zayed. I'm acting as the Chair Pro Tem for the Outreach Committee. Tuesday, June 6, 2023. Want to welcome you all, those that are the commissioners here, the staff, and those that are watching online. I'm going to do a quick roll call. So, Kate Kennedy.
Present.
Alana Garrett Ferguson.
Present.
Kyle Early is not here. Greg Reeves is not present. They both have excused absences.
I know the
Greg does.
Greg.
Okay, and I, Sharina Zayed, I am present. Okay, so the next order of business on our agenda is selection of the chair, but we have all agreed that due to members of the outreach committee not being in attendance.
It says live. It is streaming, and I do.
It's live on the streaming. You're not able to see it.
Let me check real quick.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break to check our cameras.
Sheree, I'm on it here. Yeah. You can't see it streaming. Yeah, because he said it says it's going live. Can you hear it? Well,
I hear it. I hear it, and I see. I see it. So.
Okay. All right. That was Jason. You said you can't hear it or see it.
I can on my phone. I don't know how to fix that.
So you can on your.
I can hear it. I can hear it, and I can see it on my personal cell phone.
You can hear it.
I can hear it, and I can see
Alana,
it.
Maybe,
can you
okay,
check
then
to
it's
see if you
probably
can see it?
Jason's then.
Okay.
Yep, I can see it.
Okay.
Okay,
So
so yeah, I don't know what that is, but we're going to go forward. So like I was saying, as far as the next item on our agenda, selection of the chair, we are going to postpone this until the next meeting. Do we have to vote for that, or can we just, have to? Okay, so we're going to postpone that until our next meeting when we have a full committee present. So we'll move on to new business. And that it will be presented by Ryan Walker, the CPC Annual Survey and Community Police Interactions.
Is there, these are. You need a copy of these, Shelley?
I do.
You have one?
Here you go.
Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and start with some of the history of where this survey comes from. In 2016 and 2018, the Cleveland Monitoring Team did a community satisfaction survey, or sort of a survey to kind of see where the opinions of the community are with how good with the sort of quality of policing they were receiving. These surveys were, I had over 1,000 respondents. They used randomly selected, they were used random digit dialing, which means just random phone numbers in Cleveland were called until they got enough residents in the sample, and those were pretty well done surveys. Unfortunately, they were changed between the 2 years, so you could not use them longitudinally. And also, they didn't interview the same people. They interviewed new people each time, so it was two cross-sectional surveys. Things have been said about those surveys in the past, but they were somewhat illuminating. Basically, it's you have the general attitude of the community is they're sort of somewhat satisfied with things, but they also have a lot of concerns, a lot of problems. Unfortunately, in 2000, they didn't do a third survey. Officially, this was because of COVID, but eventually they just stopped doing them altogether. They didn't do it in 2001, 2002. So in 2000, because they weren't doing the survey, 2020. Excuse me, it's all twos and zeros. 2020, they did not, and so we decided that we were going to start tracking kind of how the community felt. Now we were limited into the kind of questions we could ask because we had to deal specifically with topics related to the consent decree. So we looked at things like citizens' perspectives on how well they're doing with things like constitutional policing, bias-free policing, how CPOP's going. And while we didn't necessarily always use the sort of technical terms for these, preferring more sort of straightforward language, that's how these community surveys came about. We started the initial one. This was, not a random survey. We did not have the money to hire a polling firm to do, to call, make 100,000 phone calls to get 1,000 observations. So, but we were able to reach out to the community. We kind of, and it was reasonably successful. We had over 600 600 respondents, and we also.
Brian?
Yeah.
Since you guys didn't have an outside firm, can you say who did help, or what methodology you did?
So we just used. I don't want to use the word convenience sample, but just was sort of the sample of we just post on social media and try to in various things and try to get people to respond. And we do know that, interestingly enough, we got a lot of responses from police officers themselves, and this was likely because of efforts of then Sergeant Jackson, now just Richard Jackson. He's since retired. Encouraged members of the Black Shields and other police unions to take it. So actually had a lot of police officers, which was kind of a surprise. Initially there had been, and who helped me work on I wrote the bulk of the survey, but I was assisted by, I forget.
It was a consulting
It was
firm.
the Tesser Group, yes, the Tesser Group.
Tesser?
TESSER. They're based out of Solon. I'm trying to remember that.
And
Yeah, they helped with some of the writing and crafting of them.
so they wrote the questions?
No, I wrote the questions that she was working on a project for us regarding the amount that they were helping us with the project. They looked at how much the police trainings were reflecting the community's input on those trainings. And as part of that, because this was trying to get, again, focused on community input, trying to get that, she helped with wording and some of the questions and with developing some of them. So.
And then this was a web panel survey?
This was a SurveyMonkey survey.
Okay, got it, okay.
SurveyMonkey survey, and so.
And then it was posted, so I'm just trying to understand. It was SurveyMonkey, and then it was put on social media, so it wasn't sending email, and I guess how did you also make sure like it wasn't like repeat? Was there any mechanism to make sure like people?
If you couldn't answer 2 surveys from the same IP address, that's
Okay.
standard with SurveyMonkey. And we also, the tester group also took the survey into a couple of schools. So that's how we got some of the younger people to respond to it. Unfortunately though, because this is sort of you have to, volunteer to sort of do this survey, the people who responded were disproportionately educated, which is often something you see in a lot of survey research. They were disproportionately white and disproportionately older compared to the rest of the Cleveland population. That's unfortunately effective. If you're doing a non-random survey, the people who are most inclined to do surveys are people who have the time, ability, and are politically engaged, are sort of engaged enough to want to fill surveys out. The survey was a success. Our findings were very much in line with the 2 previous surveys put out by the monitoring team. And so the next year we did the survey again. I could not for the life of me find the actual nice version that we had made up of this. So sorry, you got the final draft of it. It's somewhere. I just wanted to send this out as soon as I could. So that's why this is just a draft on it.
And this is for 2021?
This is for 2021. So what we wanted to build off of the success we had with the community side with the previous years. And so what we did was actually, because so many officers responded, we actually had a thing where if you're an employee of the CDP, you get asked your own set of questions that, while similar to these questions, also included things that were a bit more relevant to specifically your police work, as well as some relevant police demographics. Unfortunately, we had almost no one, very few officers respond to that, unfortunately, and so that was probably because there was no sort of encouragement for them to take it like they had the previous time by Mr. Jackson. However, we also wanted some additional validity to this survey, and so what we sent was we sent a little under 5,000 postcards to randomly selected addresses in Cleveland, and we used the Cuyahoga County voter database. Now, of course, yes, this means we're only going to get people who are voting, but that was the only way we could get a large for free sample of people's houses and names. And that also gave us the fact that, and what we did was these were randomized, but we oversampled zip codes that had lower turnout in the previous survey. Because the survey asks you what your zip code is, because that's how we kind of assign you into a police district, and that's the same method that the monitoring team used. And so we sent out these 5,000 things, and we made the mistake of sending them out right as the mayoral primary was heating up. The reason that ended up happening is because we were trying to get them sent out for free, because ideally we would send them out to every single water customer, because everyone gets people who get their water bills mailed. And so the water department occasionally will send out surveys to citizens in their water bills. That way we could literally reach everyone in the city. We were kind of hoping for that. That fell through. Some other stuff fell through. So and it took them so long to approve us mailing all these things. There was so much time that eventually got sent out. We kind of realized, oh crap, we're in the middle of a mayoral season. And that, I think, was the realization the next day, because we didn't get any. We were getting very few of these back. In fact, we only got 10 responses who were from the postcard one, and we knew it was a postcard one because they had a different SurveyMonkey link, so we could tell which ones were postcard and which ones were who opted to contact us some other way. It was really disappointing, and we kind of realized then, like, it wasn't until then we kind of looked at the time like, oh, we did this right in the middle of a mayoral primary with people getting everything in their mail and they're just chucking it out. I think I got. I live over in the Ward 6, and he did so much. I mean, it was maybe a bit better because he was unopposed. We still sent like a thing every couple of days, and so it was like that's why people were like, and that's our hypothesis. We have nothing to prove that. I shouldn't say like that's, but that's, and so we couldn't, because the whole idea was that even if we just got a few, maybe like 100 of them from that, it would be used to then give more validity to the survey. That was the whole idea. We knew we weren't going to collect a ton of them, but just to give this, okay, the results from the random thing and the results from the volunteer thing, these are close enough then we can say, you know what, we're showing some, but unfortunately that didn't pan out.
How much did we spend on sending those postcards out roughly?
Must have somewhere in there like 3,000.
$2,000?
I think what we sent out, I think with printing costs and with mailing costs, I don't remember off the top of my head. I don't think it was 3,000 though. I think it was, the biggest thing was the postage.
Is there a way you can get that
I can get that. I can, here, we'll get it right now.
Okay.
And that has been a concern of ours when it comes to our budget, being able to market the way that we should be able to market. We need a budget for that.
Can I just jump in here? So, as a professor at BW, I work a lot with the Community Research Institute. This is the only university-affiliated polling firm in the region. And the Community Research Institute could, I don't want to, speak out of school or whatever, but they could do like a mixed web panel, phone survey, have a huge sample, write the questions, and create a report for something in the ballpark of what it sounds like you spent in shipping those cards. So I highly, highly recommend reaching out to them because this is
What's the name again?
the Community Research Institute. I can introduce you if you want. But I'm sorry. Yeah, it's at Ball and Walls. And they did a survey for the West Side Market. They've done a lot of work that's very much aligned with this. So I highly, highly recommend that. It's high quality, they're highly rated, and because it's a university, the pricing is really competitive.
Right. And so you said that they create the survey, of course, with our help or input.
Right.
But they would also get it out into the community.
Exactly. So they could, just depending on what your preference is, usually what I recommend is a mix between like phone and web panel. So they'll be able to call people on the phone and then also send out a web panel survey as well. Then you kind of get the most responses that way. That's what I would recommend. And then, of course, whatever client they work with, the client is going to help them, is going to tell them what the content is, but what their expertise, where one of the many places that's really valuable is writing the question, because there is really a science to that.
Okay, so it was $3,600. And I actually, if you don't like, I will, it's sort of self-defense. I think the questions that I wrote were pretty much in line with what we kind of wanted for this.
It was just a return,
It was just
getting it out into the community and the return. Because not only did we, send it out via SurveyMonkey, but, we sent it out through libraries. It was placed, in various community organizations throughout the community. It was, if I was at a festival, it was there with me. We had QR codes to take the survey. So it was done a myriad of different ways. It's just, the return on it.
Was there any door-to-door outreach?
There was not door-to-door outreach, no.
We did really put a lot of effort trying to get as many places as we could. She said we left them in libraries, left them at.
We went to Dave's Supermarket instead of.
Literally for a few days, we had Dave's Supermarket just hand these out, and we had a printed version of the survey. We had the little cards with a QR code on them. We put a lot of energy to trying to get these out.
I think, kind of just piggybacking what Kate has brought up, and I think there's also a few other community organizations outside of just BW. BW does great work. I think even I think Levin has a group that does something similar to some organizations, or even Center for Community Solutions. I think the concern about is kind of what you mentioned with the first survey is that we want to make sure that this is representative of all of Cleveland. So when I hear that a survey is successful, but majority only educated white folks took it, that means that it was not successful at all. That means that it wasn't successful. And so I think reaching out to organizations who they do this work, they're experts in it. A lot of them, I could assume, would support the commission, and a lot of us have relationships with some of these other organizations and universities, but really relying on their expertise so that we're not spinning our wheelhouse in an area that we know that we could kind of divert to something else. But and not that they wouldn't have our input around questions and things of that nature, but really understanding that there are people who go to school for this for years and years, and there are organizations that are and that's also part of outreach and community buy-in. There's a lot of institutions locally that is committed to the success of this commission, that is committed to wanting this consent decree to disappear. And I think if we use our network and we just reach out and have a conversation, we can get a product that is unbiased, that is academic quality, that actually is representative to the entire community as a whole, and actually has real validity. Because I think just utilizing a survey monkey and just going randomly, that's great, but I don't think that is what we need to actually have to do institutional-wide change, and also make sure that we're getting all types of people. These agencies, they know how to reach out to those who are low propensity voters. So I think us expanding our network and expanding the network of the commissioners and asking for help can really make this a solid survey. But from my expertise and from my background, I would not say that neither of these were successful because they're not representative. They did not have enough people. And I think it is very limited in the scope of of what the needs are of the community.
I would ask that for you, Commissioner Kennedy, and you, Commissioner Garrett Ferguson, would you mind sending an email of the organizations that you think we should work with? Any suggestions?
Call them and see quotes or something.
Yeah, send the information.
Commissioner, careful with that, because we can't be looking for favoring, or if there's an exchange of money, we can't look like we have any favoritism towards a group or an organization. Okay, like with contracts and things like
Right,
that.
but
That's,
but how did you get the tester
we
group?
had a competitive bid process.
Well, we would just have a bid.
But we didn't reach out to them. We put the bid out and they reached out to us.
And that's something that we could look into doing again. And put out a bit.
But I'm just curious, because I'm not familiar with these types of organizations, so I'm just curious of the work that they do. So I would want to do research on these types of organizations. So
Yeah,
when
sure.
they do come, I can know what I'm looking at.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
We can also probably send you samples of other surveys and organizations they work with. Because a lot of these organizations, they work with so many local, probably most of the groups in South Village have probably worked with one of the organizations we're talking about.
Yeah, CRI's worked with, as I said, the West Side Market, with Cuyahoga County, with the Sewer District, with some other statewide organizations. They used to do a horse race political poll every season, all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
Do you have anything else?
Well, the results that we had were very similar to the results in the other two surveys. And again, this is one of the things that we say is that we don't have the ability to collect data to the standards that we would want to. But I would think that the information contained in this is still, I think, very illuminating, especially as the first survey was going on in relatively close timing to the I don't want to say the sort of protest movement that was occurring in the early 2020.
Ryan, what are the resources that you you, in your experience from working here,
Mhm.
what are the resources that you think you all would need to be able to do the type of research that you would like to do?
Seriously, to do the kind of survey that I wish I could do is, I think, the same kind that we ideally, in an ideal world, you would have you'd contact obviously we would do the normal bidding process, have a survey research firm do an actual random digit dial survey. And ideally though, and this is one of the limitations we had here, is we didn't have any money to hire for a translator, is we couldn't do the survey in Spanish. And we didn't have the money to sort of spend on, sending this out to people. And so having a random digit dial survey of around 1,200 Clevelanders, oversampling for Black respondents and oversampling for other respondents of a lower survey response level, LGBTQ plus Clevelanders. Though we had a pretty good response rate from on our survey. That's because they went to a. But it's yeah, and it'd be something like that. And those can be on the magnitude of $60,000 to $100,000.
Have we ever thought about utilizing college students and just partnering with the colleges? Like, I just think of, and I don't know, because in the past, I don't know the demographics of folks who are like on the commission, but I'm just thinking of like some of the people who we have now in different places they work, and just how far having a relationship and asking someone, like I know Cates, they have their social justice institute, they have service learning projects where I have served and seen how they have came in and did all, I forgot, they did a project recently around like Glenville. It was grad students, so it was a high quality product. I'm just wondering, like, how often have we really reached out to our neighbors, and just even maybe ask other commissioners, like, hey, what relationships do you have in like your alma mater or different places? Like, have we done that before?
And we certainly have. We've utilized the resources that we had. Again, we're a small shop, so with me being the only community engagement person, and my job is literally to engage the entirety of Cleveland. Cleveland is almost 400,000 residents, right? So it's hard for one person to get out there. I'm on the ground, Sarah's doing it digitally. So we've done, the very best that we could with what we have. But now that we do have you guys, and you're very engaged, and I'm so thankful for that. We look to, just make sure our reach is much greater this time. And I know that it will be, because you guys are, like I said, you're networked and you're engaged in this work. So I know that it's going to be better.
I mean, yeah, it would be, if we could have I think one of the things that I kind of wish we could do, again, this is a very ideal world. I know this is not possible or probable in the near future, but have data that you can divide up enough and do and be thorough enough that you could do something like regression analysis on it. Because that's how you start to really pick out trends and things that you might have otherwise missed. Have data that is in depth enough and has a high amount of validity that you're able to go in and say, what, if we hold these things constant, how does this affect this? And being able to say that would be the gold standard. And that's one of the things that random digital is just one approach to that. There's many different approaches to that. There's other ways of attracting things, but that's sort of to actually dive into the data on a multi-dimensional perspective. It's not just, here's the percent of people who thought this, here's the percent of people who thought that. And that's important. That's extremely important. But we kind of, you end up missing out on finding things that you didn't know were there, because of that. And the reason is simply that given the limited resources, we've not been able to collect the quality and quantity of data that we wanted to. And it's it irritates me that the fact that they had an opportunity in 2016, 2018 to start this whole process of we'll do a longitudinal analysis, we'll do this really nice sophisticated thing, we'll collect data over and over
For
again.
clarity, in 2016, who?
Oh, I'm sorry, the monitoring team.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
so sorry. Sorry, I'm a little bit of a.
No, you're fine.
I'm-
It's
I'm-
helpful to.
Yeah, and so it'd be nice if they just kept doing that, we could actually track then some of these progress. And anyway, one of the other things I did kind of want to add was that we were limited previously to just what the consent decree mentioned. Because we were existed by the consent decree, all of our work had to be focused on the consent decree. We now can ask about anything. And that is, so that expands the range of things that we can actually ask residents and see what they want with these things. And so that I think is a more
Encompassing.
more all-encompassing thing, because this only asks about things related to CPOP, has the 5 main areas of bias-free CPOP, use of force, critical incident training, and citizen interaction. So those things are obviously the meat of what we do, but there's more out there that we want to ask. So I'll take any help I can get. So that was that. If you have any questions about these, they're very interesting. Like you said earlier, this was not what we were hoping for with these, but all information is still information, and it still is, I think, at least be used to sort of inform things, at
Absolutely.
the very least. So that's all. I'll go back to.
So, Ryan, I have a question.
Yeah.
So, based off everything you said, how can members of this committee help you with engaging in surveys and doing the work and completing the next report?
Well, it's going to have to be sort of, it's going to be a decision now as we continue on with this sort of methodology, just so we can continue to have more data points, which we could do that. Or do you think that maybe we should take this in a different direction? Sort of thinking about that, thinking what putting together a new survey, or as much as I like the whole idea of keeping things the same, because that way you can compare it year after year after year, because these aren't, what I did during the third one, which is the really rough draft one you received, never actually ended up publishing it. What we found was that all these years, I went back and just did a simple t-test. Nothing had changed. Basically, all the levels, there was a bit of wobbling, but you ended up in the same place with all the questions. You had, so things hadn't been improving over those years. So just thinking what we want to get out of a community survey, and if possible, how do we make it so that when we do have it in our hand, we are able to make it go out to as many human beings as possible in a way that is as statistically valid as possible. So a way that you can actually say, this is a reflection of what the citizens of Cleveland actually think. Does that make any sense, or am I?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that I think is what would be most helpful going forward with that. So
Thanks, Ryan.
yeah, if you have any more questions, I will happily answer them. So yeah, thank you all.
Thank you. We
And
appreciate
good
you.
job doing what you could do with the research.
Thank
This was a
you.
lot of work, Ryan.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next agenda item, we have Shelley Williams presenting the CPC staff community engagement strategy.
All right, thank you. And so before you have what Sarah, my colleague Sarah Anderson, and I have been working together to put together an awareness and engagement plan since November of 2022. And like I said, this is a rough draft, but it is based on the work that we've both been doing since we've been here, which is now 4 years, and how we think engagement needs to happen going forward. And again, based on what it is that we've done over the past 4 years. And so if you open it up, we do start with a table of contents, and you're going to see that this plan is a little outdated because, again, we started last year, and some of the timelines have definitely passed. So when I say it's a rough draft, we definitely want your feedback, input, so that we can make it something that we can use for the year coming up, and maybe even for the rest of this year. And so we did start with the plan overview and objectives, what it is that we intend to what this plan is intended to do. And you guys can kind of, read through that at your leisure. And then we've broken it up into a couple of different topics, bringing awareness to the community, which is what we're doing right now. A lot of what you're going to see in this plan are things that you guys are currently doing right now, such as traveling the CPC meetings throughout the community. We're already doing that, having listening sessions, because they're multifaceted, right? One, to bring awareness about who it is that we are, what it is that we do, and then secondly, to get the community's input so that their values are reflected in the work that we do. As you can see here, some of our goals were to definitely reach those populations that we've not tapped into, or that's kind of hard to reach, those being our youth, our young adults, and then our senior populations. So those are going to be target focuses for us moving forward. Building a brand, that's something that, we want to do. I want to say we want to build a brand. And so that would be something that we would definitely want you guys to consider. What does our branding look like moving forward? And then thirdly, what is our value beyond police reform? We do have our grants program where these items are the focal point. So if we could build programming around these areas, or I don't know. This, again, something that we were thinking about. And so we started talking about what the actual plan looks like. What we've been doing over the past 4 years, creating those partnerships in the community for me, because I'm in person, these are partnerships that I've created with our youth. I've gone into CMSD. I have some partnerships with some local schools, definitely some library programs. I've not tapped into charter schools or Catholic schools. And for rec centers, I've not really tapped into rec centers. I go there and leave literature. As a matter of fact, I just went on City Hall, and it can be mass distributed through City Hall. But as far as actually creating relationships with rec managers, I've not done that yet. Young adults, I did have a relationship with Job Corps, community colleges, getting into those. I do have a partnership with Tri-C now. And so, and again, I guess I got the rec centers down here. And seniors, that's a population that I've yet to tap into. And so I do have some block clubs that I'm a part of, community and ward meetings I attend. I haven't attended all 17 wards, but I do attend community and ward meetings. And so, just building those relationships with the community. And now that you guys are here, we're 13 more members strong. So it's not just me trying to, engage all of Cleveland. It's all of us now. So these are some areas, and Alana, I know that you had some more on the document that you just sent to me. So we add those into there. And if you could find the rest of it, I'm sure that your document is very reflective of, what you see here. And then these are some of the events. Every year it changes. So I'm always trying to make sure that during the summertime, we are everywhere all the time. Every festival that we can get into, every block club, whatever's happening in Cleveland, we're looking to make sure that we're tabled at that event. And then Sarah, she does, the online marketing. So, and I'm sure you guys, you're part of our social media handles. I'm not even sure what you call it, but I'm sure you're partnered with it. You have what do you call it?
Social media.
Yeah, like, are you guys friends? You're friends? Following?
Yeah.
Okay. And so if you're following us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, you see all the things that we're putting out there. And again, these are some of our partnerships that we have internally and externally. Under education, the objective again is to help the community understand who we are, what we do. And so these were some of the goals that we created to further that, to make sure that that happens. And then this is the plan for ensuring those goals are met.
Chuck, I guess, how much have we spent in the past?
Spent? No.
We have never had a directed budget towards anything community engagement related.
No. So when we talk about community engagement, creating flyers for events that we have, we've spent money on creating flyers. We have spent money on maybe food, like when we did our Common Ground series. If we need to pay for a space, we've done that. So we'll pay for some spaces. We had our Common Ground at Spaces on the west side. But typically we're looking for free spaces. Jersey Thornton has always been a go-to. The Catholic school, St. Martin de Porres, that has been a favorite go-to because it's free. Our rec centers are free. And so we don't have a budget per se for community engagement. So that might be something that we look into moving forward. It will certainly help.
Yeah, and kind of just going back to the question Sharina asked Ryan, have we ever invested in any type of door-to-door canvassing or foot soldiers or individual community ambassadors?
No.
Have you ever partnered with any of the community health workers or those people who they kind of already go
So I
out
will
into the
say-
community to carry our information?
I will say this. With the conversation series that I'm a part of, that we're doing right now, we are partnered with a lot of organizations that are now, helping to spread the word, particularly about the conversation series. But it is also helping to get our name out there, who we are, what it is that we do. This is a part of us. And so we are partnered in that way at this point. And that's been ongoing for several months now.
So the stuff you put about branding, and I know we got some t-shirts and stuff. What budget did that come from? They originally created the initial logo and stuff.
So we did have a budget for swag, some swag items. And so we do have that. And, but again, if we want to, we can certainly continue with the brand that's out there right now, or if we want to rebrand ourselves. And then part of that branding is creating, literature. So we don't have brochures, things of that nature. And so this plan is what we want to see come to fruition. Making sure that, we do have, folders, brochures. So when people see us, they know when they see our logo, they see our imaging, and they know exactly who we are and what we stand for. And then community visits and outreach. So typically we've done our meetings and our outreach in the same manner as you see with your meetings. They've always been done that exact same way. And so for me, community engagement looks different for different audiences, right? I can't engage high schoolers or middle schoolers in the way that we engage 50-year-olds, right? It has to look different. I can't engage college students in the same way that I engage, people who have never been to college or have no desire to go. And so community engagement for me looks different for people, for different members of our community. Meaning, I would love to see things such as when we did our Common Ground conversation. That was a little different. The conversation series that we're having right now, this is a little different than some of the things that we've done in the past. Maybe we might want to do a silent disco. Ryan, don't say a word. Don't say a word about it. Don't say a word. Because again, it engages a different audience. And so, how do we want to switch it up, if you will, moving forward? So all of our meetings aren't just the same kind of meeting, because Cleveland is diverse. And so we have to have some divergent ways that we engage our community members.
Have you ever utilized the local media as far as radio?
Mhm. Yeah.
Which radio station?
And so we've done WOVU radio, and I believe in the past there's been time brought for spaces like 93 and 107 or 109.7.
Radio 1.
Radio 1. And again, those would be for, events that are happening. We've also utilized like Signal, Scene magazines. So we do have those media outlets that we utilize. As you know, TV20 is our go-to. So we are partnered with some outlets. And then as you kind of move forward, there was a timeline for, achieving these goals. And it was broken down into phases. But as you can see, we're already, according to this timeline, we would be in phase 3 right now, which is kind of rolling out phase 1 and phase 2. So we would need to readjust. And I know that you've not had time to look over this plan in-depthly. So I kind of want to leave it with you. And I certainly want the plan that you submitted a couple of months ago. Like I said, I'm sure it's very much in line with some of the things that we're doing already and some things that we're looking to do in the future. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you, Shelley. I appreciate this. All right, so we're going on to the next agenda item, call for additional items introduced by commissioners. Do any of you commissioners have anything to add?
I think just off the top of my head, just thinking about, especially I know you and Shereen, we both sit on the budget and grants committee. I'm just thinking of now that we have, and you think, sorry. I didn't realize how many of us are.
It's okay.
We're on everything.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of like, now that we actually have a budget, just things that are running through my mind. I think I would love for us to invest in our community by having some type of community ambassadors. Because I'm all about the door knocking and people in the community, like going up to people, especially when we think of like young people and things of that nature. So just trying to, just from a budget standpoint of just, I think if we could come up with like maybe some ideas and things we think will cost and then other partnerships, because I think a lot of us know a lot of people that we won't have to pay for certain things. But I think there's multiple ways we can just engage more of the community and just be a little bit more creative. So I'm just thinking those things.
I think that's a great idea. And in doing so, those ambassadors will get the word out and build the brand that we want to put out there. So I think that's a good idea.
Totally agree. I think deep canvassing is really powerful and important, and is really aligned with probably the goals that we have for connecting this commission with the community. Another thing I'm thinking about, as you were talking about community engagement, something I think is so important is going to where people are rather than asking them to come to us. And that's like organizing. You know what I mean? It's like organizing 101, right? Like, come on. So, like, not asking people to come to you, but going to them. So, just like off the top of my head, right? I'm thinking like, summer's great because you can go to lots of events, right? Like what's a cookout we could go to? Like, what's a block party we could go to? Happy Dog does a lot of those kind of conversations. I know they do them with the city club, but I think it would be kind of interesting if we did one there and venues like that, like across the city. I think the possibilities are sort of limitless as it relates to the places we could like ingratiate ourselves. So that's I'll do some more thinking on that.
No, I agree. I'm thinking of like was it Thursdays to have like
Yes.
higher programming right now,
Yes.
and they have a lot of intergenerational opportunities. I'm thinking of like Friendly Inn and all of the things that they do, and really just building those relationships with the organizations that are already hosting events. Because I think investing in, I would want us our resources to go more so to investing in people first instead of just us having another event. Because everyone's having so many events. But if we are partnering with those, or even some church groups and some communities of faith that have really large presence. I mean, one of our commissioners has a whole mental health series going on right now. Like, what would it mean if 2 or 3 of us was there talking also about the commissioner or something?
Yeah, I think so too. And then maybe reaching out to people that are already doing organizing and connecting with their neighborhoods and their groups that they're already connected with, to expand our connection with Black clubs and neighborhood groups.
And that's also a really good way to steward resources, Sharina. Like almost, this is obviously nonpartisan, but like you could have like, what's the word I'm looking for? Almost not a ticket, but like, you know how, like the state party, for example, everyone will sort of like fold into all the candidates will fold into the party right up and down the ticket. We could sort of fold into what other community organizers are doing and fold into the operations and the structures that they already have. As long as they're aligned with us, that would be a good utilization of our time and resources, probably.
And I'm also thinking of like us having some internships to get help for you, Shelly. I think we should offer internships, whether it's with high school students and whether it's with some of the college students. But I think we need to get some interns in here.
So high school students, I know we've kind of stayed away from high school students
How
because they
come?
come with a lot of stipulations. I know that Jason didn't want like the permit commissions that we had to go through and all the hoops that we had to go through. And I've worked with high school on my youth event, and we had to go through a lot of permissions.
I think it depends on how we reach them, but I don't want us to shy away because of a challenge of working with high schoolers. I'm very big on working. My first advocacy points were in high school. I worked at NAACP at 16 years old when Stanley Miller, God bless his soul, was the executive director, and had plenty of internships doing advocacy work. And I don't think that we can appropriately reach the youth if we don't have them at the table. A lot of us are far from the age of like a youth in that way. So I think it's very, very important. And even if it's something that the commissioners, there's different people that can help and offer more support. But I don't think that just because of there's different liabilities, we shy away, especially since there's so much going on with our youth, and our youth deserve to be invested in. They deserve to have opportunities where they get to make decisions, have their voice heard, receive stipends, receive job skills. We never know the seed we could plant from having high schoolers. So I think that we should definitely look into what are the requirements. Is it because they have to be a CMSD student, or maybe it's students from a charter school, maybe it's something we partner with churches to get them. But there are a lot of nonprofits in the city of Cleveland that work with young people. And I think that we should be one of those ones. If we really say we're about community policing, we have to have young people at the table. And so I would personally even look into what are those stipulations, because I think it's really, really important for us.
And we did, I don't know if you're familiar with our lot work group, Leaders of Tomorrow. And so they were a group of young people. They were like a shadow commission, and we worked with them for the past 2 years. They were supposed to feed into the senior board when other members kind of went away or whatever, and they were ages. I think we had them ages 18 to 24, and then we did have one who was 16 years old. With the youth group, one of the stipulations for the grant that I wrote was that we develop a steering committee of the persons who are there of at least 10. And we do have interested parties. And so we are looking to do that for about 1 to 3 months, just to ensure that their voices are, continued in this work. There was some offerings up of, I want to say, not Job Corps, but there are places where you can go and hire in young people, like we wouldn't have to pay for them somewhere else to pay for them, but they would, work for us. And,
Have you ever reached out to YOU? Or I know even YOU would be great. They have and they do a lot of that type of mentorship and development oftentimes with the youth, and the youth have already been vetted. I'm also thinking of, you mentioned St. Martin de Porres, those students work anyway. What would it mean for one day a week? This could be a job placement site for them or something.
yeah.
So just there's more organizations and high schools and programs that are like that across the city that maybe we could start having these type of conversations. And there's other grants and different things that's out there to support that work, because those are partnerships that people are used to seeing in the city.
I would just say this sounds like potential for a work group to develop these ideas, and because you're coming up with a lot of good suggestions. So I suggest that we think about creating work groups around these ideas. Is there anything else, Shirley?
Just
Anybody
that,
have anything? Okay.
I think it was a good first meeting. Do you want to try to book another one, or do we want to?
I think we should send out a survey, since we have members members that aren't here, and we have completed our agenda in its totality, so we can adjourn this meeting at 7:18 p.m. Perfect. Thank you, ladies.
When do we want to meet